Well, hello and welcome to my continued kind of read through and discussion of Lord of the Rings. And we come to chapter 5 of the Fellowship of the Ring, a Conspiracy Unmasked. Again, one of these little chapters in Lord of the Rings that when you first read it through, you might think it's not really doing a lot. It's a kind of linking chapter. Frodo and Merry, Pippin, Sam. They made it to Crick Hollow, which is Frodo's new house. Also, the world is supposed to think. His friend Fatty Bolger has been getting things ready, their dinner and everything prepared. But of course, we the reader know that Frodo is not stopping there. He's going to head out into the wilderness with the ring. But the conspiracy is brilliant because Frodo, until this point, thinks that he's kept this whole taking the ring, leaving the Shire, going on this this big adventure. He thinks he's kept it secret. He thinks the only people who know are obviously him, Sam, and of course Gandalf. And we're about to discover this wonderful moment where actually it turns out the entire bunch of hobbits, Merry, Pippin, Fatty, they all know what's going on. They've had a little conspiracy together. They've spotted what's going on. They know what's going on. They've kept a secret from Frodo. They know what's going on. And there's this wonderful little moment that I'd like to kind of read to you and then just unpick a few things from, because as ever with Lord of the Rings, it's not just a story. There are so many beautiful themes that Tolkien is working with here. But when it comes out that the others know more than they have let on, that the cat is out of the bag, Frodo says, good heavens, I thought I'd been both careful and clever. I don't know what Gandalf would say. Is all the Shire discussing my departure then? Oh no, said Merry, don't worry about that. The secret won't keep for long, of course, but at present it is, I think, only known to us conspirators. After all, you must remember that we know you well and are often with you. We can usually guess what you are thinking. I knew Bilbo too. To tell you the truth, I have been watching you rather closely ever since he left. I thought you would go after him sooner or later. Indeed, I expected you to go sooner. And lately we have been very anxious. We have been terrified that you might give us the slip and go off suddenly all on your own like he did. Ever since this spring, we have kept our eyes open and done a good deal of planning on our own account. You are not going to escape so easily. But I must go, said Frodo. It cannot be helped, dear friends. It is wretched for us all. But it's no use you trying to keep me. Since you've guessed so much, please help me and do not hinder me. And then I love this line of Pippin's. You do not understand, said Pippin. You must go, and therefore we must too. How's that for friendship? How is that for friendship right there? Merry and Pippin, they know the burden that Frodo is carrying. They know how much it's weighing on him. They know he's got to go, and therefore they are going to come as well. Sam is an excellent fellow, Pippin continues, and would jump down a dragon's throat to save you if he didn't trip over his own feet. But you will need more than one companion in your dangerous adventure. My dear and most beloved hobbit, said Frodo, deeply moved, but I couldn't allow it. I decided that long ago too. You speak of danger, but you do not understand. This is no treasure hunt, no there and back journey. Of course, a little reference there to The Hobbit, there and back again, A Hobbit's Tale, the one of the alternative titles for the Hobbit. This is no there and back again journey. I'm flying from deadly peril into deadly peril. Of course we understand, said Merry firmly. That's why we've decided to come. We know the ring is no laughing matter, but we are going to do our best to help you against the enemy. The ring? Said Frodo, now completely amazed. He's tried to keep the whole thing secret, and it's not just his leaving is out, the ring and the reason for the quest. His friends know full well what's going on. Yes, the ring, said Merry. My dear old hobbit, you do not allow for the inquisitiveness of friends. I have known about the existence of the ring for years, before Bilbo went away, in fact. But since he obviously regarded it as a secret, I kept the knowledge in my head until we formed our conspiracy. I do not know Bilbo, of course, as well I know you. I was too young, and he was also more careful, but he was not careful enough. If you want to know how I first found out, I will tell you. Go on, said Frodo faintly. Well, it was the Sackville Bagginses that were his downfall, as you might expect. One day, a year before the party, I happened to be walking along the road when I saw Bilbo ahead. Suddenly in the distance, the SBs, the Sackville Baggins, they appeared, coming towards us. Bilbo slowed down, and then, hey presto, he vanished. I was so startled that I hardly had the wit to hide myself in a more ordinary fashion, but I got through the hedge and I walked along the field inside. I was peeping through into the road after the SBs had passed and was looking straight at Bilbo when he suddenly reappeared. I caught a glint of gold as he put something back into his trouser pocket. After that, I kept my eyes open. In fact, I confess that I spied. But you must admit it was very intriguing, and I was only in my teens. I must be the only one in the Shire, besides you, Frodo, that has ever seen the old fellow's secret book. You've read his book, cried Frodo. Good heavens above, is nothing safe? Not too safe, I should say, said Merry. But I have only had one rapid glance, and that was difficult to get. He never left the book about. I wonder what became of it. I should like another look. Have you got it, Frodo? No, it was not at Bag End. He must have taken it away. Well, as I was saying, Merry proceeded, I kept my knowledge to myself until this spring when things got very serious. Then we formed our conspiracy, and as we were serious too and meant business, we have not been too scrupulous. You are not a very easy nut to crack, and Gandalf is worse. But if you want to be introduced to our chief investigator, I can produce him. Where is he? Said Frodo, looking around as if he expected a masked and sinister figure to come out of a cupboard. Step forward, Sam, said Merry, and Sam stood up with a face scarlet up to the ears. He's our collector of information, and he collected a lot, I can tell you, before he was finally caught, after which, I may say, he seemed to regard himself as on parole, and he dried up. Sam, cried Frodo, feeling that amazement could go no further, and quite unable to decide whether he felt angry, amused, relieved, or merely foolish. Yes, sir, said Sam. Begging your pardon, sir, but I meant no wrong to you, Mr. Frodo, nor to Mr. Gandalf, for that matter. He has some sense, mind you, and when you said go alone, he said no. Take someone as you can trust. Well, as ever with Tolkien, an excellent piece of writing. There's some wonderful humour in there. There's some really kind of down-to-earth, kind of earthy Hobbit realism. But the themes I really like there, one is I've just touched on a moment ago, is friendship. The story of the Ring is a story, the Lord of the Rings, is a story of many things. But it's heart, I'd say it's a story about some key relationships and some key friendships. Obviously, perhaps the most central one is going to be the Frodo and Sam relationship that runs right through to the end. You've got Aragorn and Gandalf in there. There's other very, very tight sets of relationships, and of course the Fellowship themselves. But the Hobbits, Merry and Pippin, Sam and Frodo. And I love this honest look at friendship here, that Merry and Pippin, as they worked out what's going on, as Sam has told them, because he can't bear to think of his friend, his master, Frodo, going off into this great adventure on his own with all the risks that come. You know, Frodo didn't really pay attention to what Gandalf said, take someone you can trust. Sam did. Sam cared. Sam was a friend. He listened. He involved the others. And that speech that Merry gives, that, you know, we know it's dangerous. We know you've got to go, and we're coming with you. We're not going to leave you to face this alone. So that theme runs through kind of Lord of the Rings. And I think it's a theme, actually, that really mattered to Tolkien. It mattered, by the way, to the other member of the Inklings, to C.S. Lewis. Tolkien was someone who'd lived through World War I and had seen good friends kind of die, had discovered what it really means to have people that you can stick with and trust and rely on. And perhaps in our modern era, where at times we can be tempted to reduce friendship a little bit to, you know, friend means someone who's liked my profile or clicked a button on social media. The idea that friends might be people that you're willing to lay your life down for. And Jesus said, greater love hath no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. Tolkien had seen that lived through in World War I. He then puts that attitude into the lives of the hobbits here. If we have to die, if this is a one-way trip, if this is an adventure of great cost, we're still coming. And then secondly, the kind of inverse of that is there's this theme of evil that runs through the Lord of the Rings, obviously represented by the ring and by Sauron. And one of the things that evil does, that Tolkien explores a lot in this book and his Legendarium, is how evil takes that which is good and subverts it or twists it. Look at the way that we have already seen in the Shadow of the Past chapter, how the ring tries to tempt Gandalf. Gandalf says, I can't take this ring. I'd be tempted to use it for good, and in so doing cause all kinds of chaos. The ring will take good instincts and flip them and invert them and twist them. And it does this with friendship, because one of the things the ring tries to do is separate people off. It tries, you know, the ring has partly, I would suggest, been the thing that's tempted Frodo to think you can't ask others. You can't do this. You've got to do this on your own. The ring likes to separate people out onto their own. Look at Bilbo there with the Sackville Bagginses. It's drawing him onto his own. He's isolating him. It's causing him to hide from others and secrete himself away. We saw the same theme, if you like, in Gollum, who we're going to meet later in the Two Towers, particularly. Gollum has gone from being this sort of sociable, outgoing, community-focused hobbit when he was one of the river folk, when he was Smeagol, and the ring has caused him to turn inward and retreat into his cave and be there on his own. The ring loves to isolate. I suppose you could even argue you see that theme in Sauron too, locked away there in his tower. He's got nobody he can trust, because he trusts nobody because he himself is untrustworthy. He's become ultimate power. He's turned inwards. But the ring has broken from community, and that's what sin does. And of course, Tolkien, as a deeply committed Christian, would know, would he not, that Jesus was once asked, "What's the greatest commandment?" And Jesus reduced it to two things: love God and love your neighbour. Be connected to the one who made you. That tells you who you are. It tells you what's gone wrong, tells you what the solution is, puts you in your place, gives you a foundation for your identity that's unshakable. But then that has to spill out into loving others. And the ring, I think, as you look at Tolkien's dealing with the theme of evil, directly unwinds both those things. The ring tries to separate you from others. It destroys that second commandment of loving others. And then, of course, the ring tries to persuade you to make yourself God. Sauron has set himself up there at the top of Barad-dûr as if he is the very Lord of Middle-earth, and rebelled against his creator, tried to make himself God in God's place. And I think Tolkien is introducing here this idea that's what evil does. Separates us from others, separates us from God. And here we see in this chapter, Conspiracy Unmasked, Tolkien playing with both those themes, and Frodo, who's begun on that path to sort of isolation, drawing himself inwards. It's the love of friends. It's people who he can trust, who he knows has got his back. He's grown up with them, who can look at him and go, "Mate, you're not doing it. You're not off your own. We are coming with you." And really important to see that contrast there in this chapter. So, A Conspiracy Unmasked, wonderful little chapter. And by the way, the other there are lots of little sort of minor heroes, I think, in Lord of the Rings. The other one, who I think we'll touch on perhaps later, of course, Fatty Bolger, here, one of the hobbits who gets very little mention in the Fellowship of the Ring. He turns up a few times. He's there looking after the house at Crickhollow. He's hosting. He's got everything ready for them. But he's also going to be a bit of quiet hobbit bravery, because he's the one who's going to stay behind at Crickhollow when the others set out on their quest. He's got some of Frodo's old clothes. He's going to role play. He's going to pretend to be Frodo, so that people think that Frodo is still around. And of course, that's going to see him fall into considerable danger when he plays that role too well, and the Black Riders come thinking this is actually Frodo there at the house. But again, the quiet courage of friends, whether they're going with Frodo into the wilderness and on their way to Bree, or whether it's Fatty there on his own, holding the fort and making it possible for the ring bearer to set out. The power of friendship, key theme in Lord of the Rings, beautifully here talked about in this chapter.